The Allen Lund Company continues to support the owner-operators of OOIDA. Thank you for what you do, and stay safe.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
The American Transportation Research Institute is out with a report focusing on truck parking at public rest areas. Andrew Thane of ATRI explains what the current state of affairs is and how states can use the report to expand parking opportunities where they're needed most. Every year, truckers have certain things they have to do. If they're their own motor carrier, that list includes pulling a copy of their MVR. I'll find out how to do that and discuss some related scams with Tom Crowley and Aaron Lynch of OOIDA's Compliance Department. And finally, things are still looking good for owner-operators on the spot market, and freight availability is 21% above normal. That's according to Brent Hutto of Truckstop. He'll tell us what else is going on the spot market during today's Market Update. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. As expected, the governor of Arkansas has signed a new English proficiency bill for CDL drivers into law. It requires English proficiency among truck drivers under penalty of a fine of up to $1,000. Specifically, truck drivers must show that they can read, write, and speak English. The Arkansas law codifies federal regulations that require basic English skills among CDL holders. Although truckers under the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's jurisdiction must show they can speak and read English sufficiently. The rule was severely gutted several years ago. And although the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association supports Arkansas's English proficiency law, the association thinks it doesn't go far enough. Doug Morris, OOIDA Director of State Affairs, expressed concerns about large carriers that are recruiting foreign truck drivers to undercut the ability of American truckers to earn a decent living. Morris said OOIDA is actively pursuing solutions on the state and federal levels to right this wrong. The trucking industry is trapped in a cycle of perpetual driver churn, according to new analysis from the OOIDA Foundation. In a recently released white paper, The Churn, a brief look at the roots of high driver turnover in U.S. trucking, the research arm of OOIDA dispels the notion that there is a driver shortage and instead places a spotlight on annual turnover rates of 90% or higher for major truckload carriers. Research analyst Charles Sperry worked on the paper.
I think that one of the main reasons why I decided to tackle it again is there's so many issues that ultimately do tie into this particular narrative. And that as I was looking through a lot of the research that has been done, a lot of times, you tackle one portion of it, you tackle one little corner of it, but there wasn't really very much that we had put out that kind of gives a broad overview. And so we wanted to have something that we could present to, say, lawmakers or rule makers, regulators, or even academics that are studying the issue, something that kind of gives them a good, solid overview of the situation, how it started, what it looks like right now, and what portions of the driving industry it affects.
According to the OOIDA Foundation, the roots of high driver turnover rates date back to deregulation through the Motor Carrier Act of 1980. Deregulation allowed thousands of new carriers to enter the market, leading to increased competition and reduced profit margins.
Yes, deregulation is really the point at which the market completely changed. Before that, the trucking industry was very heavily regulated. You couldn't just jump in and get a job as a carrier or anything like that. You couldn't just start up your own little business. You had to explicitly get permission. It was very complicated, right, and very, very difficult to get in. It wasn't really truly a free market system, honestly. It was fairly tightly controlled. In the 1980s, that all changed. It was like, let's open up the system, let's let the market, do its thing. The problem is, unfortunately, as that happened, and as people started pouring into the industry, there were a few perhaps mistakes that were made along the way.
Rather than a driver shortage, the OOIDA Foundation said that high turnover has become the standard operating model for large carriers. As for fixing it, Sperry and the foundation said there are a few options.
I think that one major step that you can make is stop subsidizing the carriers with public funds. Stop giving taxpayer money to carriers to fund their ability to just churn through drivers. That would be number one. Number two, you need to make sure that the drivers that are coming into the industry are actually getting their proper training. Unfortunately, many great guys are trying to come into the industry and whatnot, and they go through this, CDL school, and basically they rip them off. They are like, oh yeah, we're going to get you trained up, we're going to get you your CDL, and then the amount of training that they get there is just absolutely pathetic.
Minimal. More from Sperry on the Foundation's report next week, right here on Landline Now. 2 new identical bills reintroduced in both chambers of Congress take aim at cargo theft. Both are called the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act. If signed into law, the bipartisan bills would create something called the Organized Retail and Supply Chain Crime Coordination Center within the Department of Homeland Security. Their job establishing a plan for eliminating retail and cargo theft and helping people get their stolen goods back. The Canadian Trucking Alliance says carriers are already feeling the squeeze from new U.S. tariffs. In a recent survey, executives at carriers there indicate current business conditions are perilous. Almost 70% of respondents indicated that loads to the U.S. have been canceled or paused. Many report that tariffs are essentially bringing trade to a halt as customers and suppliers struggle to figure out the actual declared product value and who pays for these additional costs. Another major city is clamping down on truck parking. San Antonio this weekend beginning enforcement of stricter parking rules. Some streets that once allowed truck parking now will not. Complaints called into the 311 helpline were used to determine which areas will allow truck parking and which will not. The San Antonio City Council approved the changes last month. For now, warnings will be issued for violations, but starting June 18th, fines as high as $500 could be issued. Signs will indicate where tractor-trailers are allowed to park. Fueling up in Mississippi is about to get a bit costlier. Governor Tate Reeves has set the wheels in motion for a 3-cent hike in gas and diesel excise taxes starting July 1st. That'll bring the rate up to 21 cents. Then it'll go up 3 cents again next year and 3 cents more the year after that, bringing the excise tax up to a final total of 27 cents. The increase is the first of its kind in Mississippi in nearly 40 years. The money brought in will be used to repair roads and bridges. Kodiak Robotics is going public. The autonomous trucking tech company has announced plans to become a publicly listed company. Kodiak said the move, expected to occur in the second half of this year, should allow it to reach a broader customer base. The company's automated driving system has been used to log more than 2.6 million miles on U.S. roadways. And finally, Pennsylvania drivers, be on the lookout for orange cones. The state DOT has begun inspections on 8 toll bridges, and nearly 5 miles of the Schuylkill Expressway on I-76 is being resurfaced and repaired. Periodic lane closures and delays should be expected. For up-to-the-minute updates on traffic and delays in Pennsylvania and any other state, check out our guide under the Resources tab on landline.media. And that's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. If you spend any time on America's highways at all, you've seen it. One truck trying to pass another, but so slowly you can hardly tell they're pulling ahead at all. And all the while, traffic stacks up in back of them. The cause is speed limiters in trucks, something FMCSA has considered requiring in the past. However, a new bill in Congress called the Drive Act, H.R. 2819, would forbid any speed limiter requirement. Contact your member of the U.S. House today at 202-224-3121 or write a letter using the website fightingfortruckers.com. Next, Scott Thompson discusses a new report on truck parking at rest areas with Andrew Fain of ATRI. I'll find out how to go about getting a copy of your MVR from Tom Crowley and Aaron Lynch of OOIDA, and Ashley Blackford discusses the state of the spot market with Brent Hutto of Truckstop. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a CAT scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget misaccuracy when you're truck on a CAT scale.
Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
With rising costs affecting everyone, switching to a genuine Vibertech TVD viscous damper can help you avoid expensive repairs and downtime. Save money and keep your truck running smooth with Vibertech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Landline Now, welcome back. The American Transportation Research Institute is out with a new report that highlights insights and strategies for expanding truck parking at public rest areas. It's a thorough report, one that our next guest worked extensively on. Andrew Fain is a research analyst at ATRI, and he joins us on the line now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Scott. Thanks for having me on.
So I know you and your colleagues, and I know this from experience, are very interested in the truck parking crisis as evidenced by your extensive work on this topic. This report, though, in particular, is interesting because it's got a pretty narrow focus. Let's talk about what drew ATRI toward researching truck parking at rest areas specifically, and what questions were you hoping to answer?
Absolutely, yeah. So as you mentioned, truck parking is an area that ATRI we've done a lot of work in. As far as this particular project, previous research we put out documenting the core role that public truck parking plays for drivers, but particularly women who are more likely than men to park at public rest areas. So that's really the driving force of this research is, most truck parking is provided by the private sector, but there are a core group of drivers who do use public parking. So as a result of that, our Research Advisory Council identified the present study as a top priority. And so really the goal is just to assess the landscape of public truck parking at rest areas, as you mentioned, and identifying opportunities for expanding truck parking, for the public sector.
And as I said earlier, this is a thorough report, and you've got information from every state on truck parking at rest areas. Before we get into the numbers here and kind of the state of things as it looks out there right now, states in particular, I'm interested, how receptive were they when you spoke with them, when you reached out to them, when you were looking for information from them? And even more importantly, I suppose, how understanding are they of the truck parking crisis? Do they know how bad it is out there?
Yeah, I would say, first off, they're pretty receptive. I think for the most part, it's an area that states are aware of, that there, maybe there needs to be more work done there to fill that void of truck parking. So I think states are pretty receptive when we reach out to them, and they're a lot of them are actively pursuing, innovative or trying to come up with different ways to expand truck parking. So I'd say that states overall were receptive and seem to understand the issue.
And that is the goal, I think, right? And correct me if I'm wrong here, but with this research, with this report, you're trying to, again, paint a picture of what it looks like out there with regard to truck parking at rest areas. But I think more importantly, you're trying to kind of nudge everybody in that direction a little bit, with information being, the driving force. Is that safe to say?
Yes, yeah, I think, but as you mentioned, a big part of this research is highlighting states that are doing something well, so that other states can look to that and maybe find some ways they can apply that work in their own state. Because the end goal is just more truck parking. So if we're highlighting states that are doing things right, then other states can look at that, and this report catalogs a bunch of different approaches. Then other states can use that to expand truck parking in their state.
That's a great leap-off point, or leap-in point, I suppose, here, talking about the states that are doing this well. Obviously, the first step of all this was kind of figuring out how many truck parking spaces there are at rest stops across the United States. We don't need to go through all the numbers here, but there were some trends that were pretty clear when you get into the data here, and some averages worth exploring as well. Looking at that, talking about that, which regions or states are doing well, are providing the most truck parking at rest areas, and I suppose which ones have a little more work to do?
Yeah, so looking regionally, southern and Midwestern regions tended to, have the most truck parking spaces. We had a few different truck parking metrics, but that's both in terms of total truck parking spaces, but also truck parking spaces per rest area. Southern and Midwestern region states tend to do well. Northeastern and southwestern states tend to be near towards the bottom, but there is some it does vary a little, and obviously there are some, geographical constraints for particularly states in the northeastern regions. But it tends to be southern states and midwestern states that are atop of both total spaces as well as spaces per rest area.
And is that the trend? Is it because I suppose they're more focused on the issue, or is it really just a geographical thing? You talk about the Northeast. Obviously, space is limited there when we look at the, just the compact nature of the population there. The Southwest, as you mentioned, I think as well, obviously more spread out, so maybe less opportunities for rest areas. But is there a trend, I guess, with the states that are doing it right? Are they putting more of a focus on this? Or, what did you learn about how they're going about doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the state with the most truck parking spaces at rest areas, Florida, is also a state that has been really prioritized and used a lot of funding in that area. So I think it probably is a little bit of geographical constraints for northeastern states, but there are some states that are prioritizing truck parking. That's evident through whether it's devoting funds or exploring innovative ways of adding truck parking. So I'd say it's a little bit of both, right? But I would add, as far as northeastern states, one thing we did in this report is we looked at, as I briefly touched on earlier, a variety of truck parking metrics. So really trying to account for those variability in things like geographical differences in size and urban density. And two of our metrics that sort of get at that are we calculated the truck parking spaces per mile of roadway and per million truck vehicle miles traveled. And in those leaderboards, you do see some of the northeastern states towards the top. So that's really kind of telling you that, even if they don't have the total number of spaces, a state like Florida, for instance, some of them, are still doing well comparative to sort of their constraints.
Yeah, and as you kind of also mentioned before, too, this is a problem that's going to need a patchwork solution, right? It's not just public truck parking at rest areas. It's going to be the private sector that also chips in. We've got the federal government, obviously, with the bill there in the House that could put a dent in this problem as well. But we're talking about the problem here. I kind of want to shift, if we could, to solutions, right? And as states are looking to kind of work towards solving this problem, they face a lot of issues, and you talk about this in the report as well. What are some of the biggest issues facing states, even if they want to expand truck parking opportunities? Is it funding? Is it NIMBYism, the not in my backyard people? What are some of the things that they're facing, if they even do want to expand?
Yeah, so you mentioned two of the top three. So one of the top three was the lack of funding. So that's something states are pointing to, where they just don't have the dollars to get it done. Another one, as you mentioned, is NIMBYism, or sort of that not in my backyard view, where they're encountering community pushback when they try to build facilities. And the last of the top three was locating suitable land, but focusing on sort of the first two, I think in terms of what states can do to counteract that. Obviously, there's not exactly a blueprint, but some states are exploring things like public-private partnerships. So they're building facilities that are near a private facility, or even engaging in a formal partnership, and that really helps some of the funding issue. If you don't have to maybe build as expansive facilities, you can build right next to a private truck stop, and then drivers can use those amenities, or even engaging in formal partnerships with the private sector that sort of help that funding aspect.
Yeah. You also talk about truck parking information management systems. I know there are mixed feelings among the trucking population, the community, about the, helpfulness of those. But you did get into that a little bit, and states, it seems like, are getting more on board with this. I think the issue is making sure that the information is accurate. But you did talk about that in the report a little bit too. Could you talk about what you learned?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so around 12 states indicated in our survey that they have an active truck parking management information system. A lot more are either exploring it or currently in the process of implementing it. And exactly right what you said. I think drivers overall, their experience with it is mixed in terms of its reliability, and that's really the crucial component is, can the information be relied upon? And around 30% thought that it's not a source that is always reliable.
Yeah. As you were putting, and again, this is a very thorough report, and it's got a lot of information. You've got a lot of information coming in from all over the place here. Did anything, I guess, surprise you about, something that came in, something that maybe made you think, oh, I hadn't thought about that, or, I didn't expect that to be the result from whatever location? Anything surprise you, I guess, is my question.
Right, yeah. I would say one area is, so we highlight in the report states expanding truck parking through previously or other state-owned facilities. So rather than constructing and purchasing land, using previously owned land to expand upon. And one popular option for that is weigh stations. So converting weigh stations to allow truck parking, whether it's permanently or so on. And one finding that sort of surprised me in a negative way was around 54% of drivers in our sample indicated that when they parked at a converted weigh station, they did not have access to restrooms. So I think that's just a really important issue there. It's great if we're providing truck parking at weigh stations. That's an innovative way of filling in the gap, but it's also important that we need to make sure we're considering restroom access and other basic key amenities.
Yeah, that's a thing, too, that I think I've noticed in recent years is I think more and more people, especially people who are making decisions like this, are more aware that there is a truck parking crisis, that we do have a problem on our hands. So I think the awareness has gotten better. It's the action that we're kind of waiting on here. And I kind of want to circle back to what I asked you, maybe in a little bit different way, what I asked you earlier about how receptive the states are, right, to this problem. This report, you've obviously worked with states quite a bit. How do you hope they are going to respond to this report? I assume, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I assume you hope that they're going to use it to expand truck parking, use that information to help them along the process. But what are you hoping that they do?
Yes, yeah. I think that the main goal is for states to be able to get some actionable insights from the report and ideally be able to use that to expand truck parking. So one thing I just want to point to is part of this research, we created an online dashboard that has all the states who responded as well as a variety of key truck parking metrics. And that's really a way that states can see where they stand in comparison to states within their region and states with similar, just in their area. So that's something that maybe states can use to see sort of a quantifiable way to know whether they're providing truck parking, in comparison to their peers. So that's something that states might be able to use.
Yeah, maybe bring out that competitive nature a little bit, as they try to compare themselves to others there. We don't have a lot of time here, Andrew, but I did want to ask you too, our listeners, truck drivers out there who obviously want to see more truck parking, is there anything that they can do to help this process along, especially in the states that they live in or work in?
That's a great question. I would say just generally making your voice heard to local members of your community who sort of are in the position to have that power, but also just to plug our own research here, we do a lot of truck driver surveys, and for instance, in this one, we had a driver survey. Just any way you can make your voice heard would be, probably just sharing your side of the story.
Amen to that. Andrew, we've run out of time. We appreciate it, though. It's a great report. People should go check it out on your website, and we will talk to you again soon. Thanks again.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
That was Andrew Fain of ATRI. Landline Now is back right after this short commercial break. Stick around.
At Truckstop, we built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truckstop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Firestone's FD694 drive tire for long haul and regional applications now delivers 126,000 more removal miles than the Yokohama TY517 MC2. Contact your Firestone commercial dealer to learn more.
Landline Now, welcome back. Truckers have been exposed to a lot of scams over the years, and one of the most recent involves the MVR. Here to explain what's going on and to offer some advice are Tom Crowley and Aaron Lynch of OOIDA's Compliance Department. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us, Mark.
Thanks as always, Mark. Glad to be here.
Now, let me kind of set the stage on this because this is kind of interesting. I've never heard of this one before. And you guys had sent this note out saying carriers are being sent emails and texts that their MVRs are due or they're going to be fined $10,000. And people have been calling asking, how do I get an MVR and what do I need to do? Now, I remember MVR, isn't that just your motor vehicle record?
Correct. It is a motor vehicle record, your motor vehicle report, and every carrier is supposed to have one on every driver that drives for them. That's part of your driver qualification file. You know, when you set up as a carrier, and whether you're a one-truck operator or 100 trucks, the requirements are the same. And even if you're a one-truck owner, operator, chief mechanic, bottle washer, the whole thing, you're still supposed to have the application as far as your driver qualification file, a copy of your CDL, a copy of your medical, and a MVR. There's some other things that go in there. Don't let me say this is an all-inclusive list, but some other things that go in there. But a copy of your MVR. You're supposed to have a 3-year copy to start with, and then every year after that, you get a 1-year copy. And I tell people, go to your local DMV. Walk in there and give them $8 or $10, and they'll give you the copy that you need. Easy peasy. But, you know, as we know, Mark, drivers and carriers are an easy target. You know, that information is on the FMCSA website, so they do the data mining, they pull this stuff up, and they send out emails and texts to any and everybody they can. And if you send out 100,000 emails and you get 5,000 bites, you've made some bank.
Real quick, I mean, anytime I see them saying, you're going to be fined $10,000. If it's a big amount like that, I just assume that we're looking at trouble here, that this is probably a scam or something like that. Is that what we're seeing here?
Yeah, I mean, people call it a scam. You can call it a solicitation, things of that nature. What they want you to do really is to go to their site or pay them that to actually pull it itself. But it's not $10,000 if you don't do the MVR. Although, like Tom alluded to, you do have to have each one of these on every driver. And there's more ways than just to get it at the DMV. You can, a lot of states, you can go online and get it done as well now. The carrier or the driver can get it with the driver's permission at the DMV itself, right? So there's a multitude of ways. I mean, we even pull MVRs here in the compliance connections, you know, through that department. So, I mean, there's a bevy of ways to do that, but these solicitations or scams, as many people like to talk about, I mean, it's basically an intimidation scare tactic, right? To get you to utilize their service right now.
You know, and there are so many of these, and they put stuff, $10,000 fine. I mean, there are fines associated with if you don't have certain stuff during an audit. The DOT, FMCSA, most generally, they don't fine for some of this stuff that comes out on this, like for not having an MVR. You should have one. You are supposed to, and you do your background under 391.23, your background check on your drivers, you are supposed to have one. But, you know, these places, it's like the MCS 150 update. You see that they're always sending out notifications to everybody saying, oh, update your MCF 150. They'll put you out of service and they'll fine you $5,000 a day. You know, you do need to update that biannually. You can do it yourself for free. OIDA, our P&L department, does it for $40. But if you click on one of those links, they'll do it for like $199.
I've heard $500.
$500. Well, yeah. And you know, once they get their claws in you, then they put you on what they call an automatic renewal, where they will do it every time that they think it needs to be done and automatically charge you for it. I mean, you know, if you go to the FMCSA's website on their fmcsa.dot.gov/registration freight frauds, they have just all kinds of information there about all the different scams that are going on, and there are many. And if you look through there and you read that stuff, it'll scare you to death. You think, oh my gosh, there's this and that and the other, and the scammers are really good at staying ahead of everybody else. They change what their scam is. They change any way that they can get into your pocket. I mean, it is out there. The feds, they go through some stuff. It says, do not click on any suspicious links. Hover over them to see if the real email address is what it says. That's one that even here at OIDA, that, they've, let us know, hey, make sure you check this stuff. And that's for each and everybody. Now, we get a lot of calls from members that call us and say, hey, I got this, I got that. What is this? Is it real? That's definitely part of what the compliance department does, is shed light on that. If you're unsure, don't click on a link. Give us a call. And most of the time, we already know about the scam, and we can give you the lowdown on what you need to do and how to avoid some of this.
Well, and a lot of these are phishing attempts as well, right? And so when you do, like Tom said, when you do go into there and they charge you an absorbent amount, not only are they doing that for a lot of this stuff that is free, or it might be $20, $30, they want to charge you $200, $300, $500, sometimes even more than that. Also, what they're doing is, a lot of times they're having you input more information than you need to that gets very personal. That way they have more information on you to where they can go do things like identity theft and things like that for things that you don't actually have to comply with or to actually reveal in the case of your business or your personal, right? Asking for social security numbers, things like that. Also, remember on that Safer website, I use that frequently, every day. Your email is on there a lot of times, your phone number for your business, and a lot of times it's your cell phone. It's not a separate business line. It's your cell phone or a home phone. And then they also have your business address, which sometimes is your home address. And so it's not just texts. You're getting it in the mail, you're getting a phone call, or you're getting an email. And they can do it a multitude of different ways. They can do it in every single way possible. And you have to watch out for all of this. And I just want to stress, it's not just text. They're calling you. They're doing it by mail. And they're making it look better than ever. And they're getting better at it as time progresses.
Yeah, it used to be that you could look at some of this stuff and you could see that the grammar was not correct, or the punctuation was way off or something. But now AI out there, I mean, I can write a letter and it comes out perfect. Everything's great, and my typing abilities are not that good. But, with AI, it can make it perfect. So, and they're using AI. They're probably way ahead of, the most of us that are just starting to get into some of this and understand it. There are so many ways that they come at you. And like Aaron said, when you have that different pieces of information, so you have some information about an individual, you can really put together something that makes it look legit. And so many of the scams that are going on out there, so many of the motor carriers that have had their identity stolen, it's come through some of these phishing attempts, like Aaron's talking about. Because once they get a little bit of your information, man, they can really go to town and make it look like it's real and it's directed at you and it's from the FMCSA. Keep in mind, the FMCSA or DOT, they do not text. They will email and they will send you a letter. But if you have an audit coming up, they'll email, they'll send you a letter in the mail. Those are the things you need to look out for. And unfortunately, you have to dig through all this crap to get to what's real.
One of the things I've always heard, and I think, Aaron, you might have mentioned it earlier, but basically the urgency, that's a sign that something's a scam. If they say, you must take care of this now or face this giant penalty. The urgency and the penalty are two things FMCSA, for example, is not going to do to you. It's their way of trying to get you panicked.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's an intimidation tactic to get your money now, because every opportunity you give them, they're going to take. Like Tom alluded to earlier, you only need a few people to hit, and you've made your money for the day or the week or the month. It's a numbers game. You send this out to thousands and thousands and thousands of drivers. You don't need thousands of them to convert. Your conversion can be 5% and you can make $100,000 a year or more. And if you're overseas, that's great money. Yeah. Even here.
Yeah, and if you're overseas a lot of this comes from overseas, and there's, how do you go get somebody that's ripped you off overseas? I mean,
there's no jurisdiction for that.
No. And the feds say you're supposed to go and you're supposed to make a report to your police department. I mean, and on their website, they have a whole list of stuff you're supposed to do. And I'll just go ahead and throw it out there. You can do it all, and it still is not going to help. It's not going to help your situation. You're not going to get your money back. You're not going to get paid for that load you got scammed on. The money's gone, and there's nobody that can, that's going to Armenia or wherever this is happening and, getting your money back. It's once you get scammed, I mean, you're scammed. It's gone. I mean, I'll feel real bad for you, but I can't give you your money back.
Yeah, and also, if your identity's been stolen or your DOT's been compromised in any capacity, it only takes a matter of not even days but hours to ruin it to where it's no longer any good. It's a very hard uphill battle to try to clean that up after it happens, because brokers and insurance and all these customers you want to work for, I mean, you have a huge red mark across your name, and it's going to stay there, unfortunately. There's no avenue to correct that.
Yeah, and all you've done is opened an email and clicked on a link or answered some phishing attempt, and you have given away the bank. I mean, and it's, you may have had your authority for 20 years, worked hard to build that good name, and in a blink of an eye, they have stolen your identity. They are trading on your name, double brokering loads under your name, and you won't even know what's happening until it's too late. And then the recovery from that is just almost non-existent.
You mentioned a couple of ways to spot these, to avoid them. One of the things I remember being told was that when you get an email or a text with a link, as you said, don't click on the link, but instead go to the FMCSA website. If it says it's from FMCSA, go to the actual physical website, type in the URL yourself. Don't be clicking on links. Do it yourself, and then you're on the FMCSA website. That
is true. And now with the feds are getting better at identity corrections and stuff. They're getting better with the two-step identity. Most people now, or most motor carriers, are familiar with the FMCSA portal. You can go to your portal. You can log in there on your portal, and you can see if the feds have sent you a letter, because there'll be a copy of it there. So if you wonder if it's true, if that letter or that email, if it's legit, go to your portal and log in, and then you can see what's been sent to you.
And these are government websites. It's .gov, .gov, not something afterwards. Make sure the abbreviation before that matches it, right? Make sure the L is not actually an I, things of that nature. You just got to do your due diligence. Slow down.
That's it.
Real quick, because we just have a few seconds left. We started this all talking about the MVR, the motor vehicle record, and them saying, it's due right now or you face a fine. So when do you have to get that and have it on hand?
You are supposed to have that every year. You're supposed to pull one on your drivers, on each driver, and the only time you will be asked for that is during an audit. There's no other time that you'll be asked for it. It's only during an audit, and most of the time, that is not even what they ask for. They want to see your drug and alcohol testing stuff. They want to see, this type of stuff. So just be diligent.
Okay. Well, guys, we run out of time, but thank you very much. This is very good information.
Thanks for having us, Mark.
Thanks as always, Mark. Glad to be here.
I've been talking with Tom Crowley and Aaron Lynch of OOIDA's Compliance Department. Landline Now will be back in a moment.
Protect your diesel engine with Howe's Diesel Defender. Restore vital lubricity, eliminate injector deposits, and boost fuel economy by 5% or more. Power, performance, protection, all in one. Howe's Diesel Defender, available now.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline now. Welcome back. If you're hauling freight and running your own business, you need to keep track of some basic facts and figures that can determine whether you succeed or fail. And that includes finding the freight and how much money you can make hauling it. Today, Landline Now's Ashley Blackford will bring us some of that information and get some insight as to why things are happening with the folks from Truckstop.com. Here's Ashley now with a report.
Thanks, Mark, and hello to Brent Hutto with Truckstop. How are you doing today, Brent?
Well, Ashley, I am on the road again.
On the road again.
Yeah, I think it's a song.
It is a song. Too. Definitely a song.
One of the famous, very famous one. But I'm up in New Jersey at the Pharmaceutical Cargo Security Conference, and it's put on by the Healthcare Distribution Association, where they really want to make sure that pharmaceuticals are very, very safe in their transport to where they need to get to. And you can imagine the security that goes on around those things. So it's really an eye-opening thing. I just listened to a guy talk about security in south of our border into Mexico. It's just fascinating, all the different things. But it's always good to learn how trucking is continuing to adjust to the current conditions. Yeah.
Very cool. Looking at current market conditions, another Lenny Kravitz song this week.
Yeah,
Tell me about that.
Well, I chose probably one of the most famous ones, Are You Going to Go My Way? Because it seems like over the last many weeks, many things are beginning to get in the spot market. That's the transportation market or the freight market for owner-operators and small fleets. That the conditions have been continuing to go their way. And even though we'll talk about a little bit of a decrease week to week, things are still going the way of the owner operator, because freight availability, and remember, freight availability dictates what rates are going to be too, because if there's more freight and there's the same amount of trucks, rates will go up. Well, freight availability is still 21% above normal. What I mean by normal is the 5-year average. And so that's really good. So the conditions are good. The pressure in the marketplace subsided just a little bit, but it was already super high. It was like double what it normally is. And what I mean by that is just the pressure to kind of get goods moved. It went down about 15 points, but it was already up like double what it was. Usually it's 55. It was 113 2 weeks ago. Well, last week was 95. So that means it's still going to favor the owner-operator and small fleet in the marketplace. And so, I talked a little bit about load postings. They decreased 12%, but they're still 20% above the average. So there's more freight in the market than normal. So that's good. Rates went up another penny, Ashley, and so that's good. That's overall rates, although we saw a decrease on the van side down to 187. Still a little bit of struggle there. This is why we talk about efficiency all the time. You really need to look at your per mile rate that you're getting, and how are you really maximizing the way in which you're optimizing your routes and your hours and those sort of things. Flatbed increased 3 cents. Again, it's up 24 cents in 7 weeks, which is pretty promising. A lot of that's due to tariffs and things like that where people are pulling forward a lot of industrial goods because of the tariffs that are going on those types of things. And refrigerated dropped 7 cents as well, kind of like van, kind of up and down in that area. Fuel went up another penny, so which is always a challenge, but you need to know how to negotiate that. And remember, to every owner operator out there, when you're in the spot market, the fuel surcharge is not baked into the rate that you're looking at. So know what that fuel surcharge is so you can negotiate it. Super important. I mean, right now it's still 6 cents above before Russia invaded Ukraine, and that's the reason I use that as a sort of a watermark, is that that's when energy started costing more. Fuel is part of the energy, the petroleum base, and so when we have challenges with that, or we start to depend more on foreign energy, oil, and that sort of thing, prices, they tend to kind of dictate prices to make them go up for us, which is a bit of a challenge. This is why our current administration is really focusing a lot on that, because they want to get more affordable on our energy, on our fuel. But as we've talked about every single week, I want every owner-operator to know this, the outbound tender reject index, You can still cheer it from the mountain. Keep watching that, because that's the contract rate that gets pushed into the spot market. It's still above 5%. It was above 6% last week, and this week it's at 5.5%. So that's still a good thing. That means more freight continues to come in. Remember, we're going to have ups and downs. That's important. It's not, oh gosh, well, last week it was good, this week it's more of a challenge. Well, You always want to make sure to look at the numbers, because there are little ups and downs in markets as any market recovers. So that's sort of some of the market conditions that are out there, Ash.
All right. What are some of the top regions and lanes from last week?
Yeah. And so, we covered this. So, one of the reasons why you and I bring this to the marketplace is because everything in the spot market is unique. I'm going to have a comment at the end about the macro or the sort of the nation freight that's going on, the freight that's going on in the total nation. But if you're an owner operator and you can choose any lane whatsoever and choose any lane to work in, then you need to look at what's going on week to week to week, because there's great freight and there's some challenging freight as well. So if you just kind of stick in the same lane and you're having a tough time, look around. So load availability, as I said, decreased, but year over year, I'll just give you this: the West Coast year over year is still down 10%. Mountain Central's down 3%, but every other region is up. South Central up 5%, Midwest up 11%, Southeast up 41% year over year. Yeah, maybe some flatbed in the Southeast if you can get a flatbed to haul would be very good for you. Northeast up 21% year over year. Super, and that's availability. Rates sort of in the same range, but not same percentages. Remember, they're not always the same percentages, but you'll see the same directional stuff. West Coast down 2.5% year over year. Mountain Central up 5%. South Central up 3.3%. Midwest kind of holding even at about less than 1%. Southeast up 10.4%. The biggest gainer was in the Southeast. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Northeast up 5%. So it's super important for you when you're looking at those regions. Follow those regions, because you'll see it doesn't just happen one week and it goes away the next week. It usually follows a pattern of time periods. Could be months, could be a couple months, could be a quarter. So keep looking at those things. Some of the actual lanes that increased. So on van, we saw Phoenix to Salt Lake increased 25%. Los Angeles to Salt Lake. Houston, there's back to Texas again. You and I've been talking about Texas. I was just there the whole week last week. But good increases anywhere from about 11 to 25% in those areas. And then flatbed, Laredo to Salt Lake. Looks like we got a lot of Salt Lake freight going on recently. El Paso to Phoenix, Phoenix to Dallas. So a lot of those areas, and those were anywhere from 10% to 22%. So those are healthy increases. And refrigerated, sort of the same thing. We seem to be seeing a lot of the same freight in these areas. We got Phoenix to El Paso to Houston. So you're here in Houston, El Paso, Salt Lake, Phoenix, all these sort of. So this is what I mean by know where to look when you're looking for freight, and usually it's going to end up better for your bottom line.
All right. Got a few industry points you want to tell us about. What are those? Yeah,
I do. It's always some of the things that maybe truckers don't necessarily hear every time. Number one, I'm going to talk about when I talked about the big market. So the big market is, I look nationally at freight as well. I don't just look in the spot market. The spot market's about 100 million to 150 million movements of freight a year. That's 150 million of 900 million movements. So there's a lot, you can imagine, there's a lot of freight that moves in the United States. So know your market. There's a group out there called Cass Systems, and really Cass is just a giant bank. They get about 80 billion, I think, in total freight movement. Remember, freight's $1 trillion industry, so 80 billion sounds like a lot, but it's not. But they measure the really, really big players because they do all their processing and stuff for their payments. Well, they showed that March is an increase month for our entire industry. They showed that it entered kind of weak and it exited kind of weak. What they said was it didn't change much. All right, but here was the unique thing that came out of this, and this is something I put out there by my good friends over at FreightWaves. Even though the freight didn't increase as much sort of periodically as it kind of does, here was the last line in the article. It said, the pricing environment is relatively steady and rising modestly. Now, that's the overall macro part of the market, the big part of the marketplace. So if it's rising modestly in the contract part of the marketplace, actually, it's going to rise even more in the spot market. If you remember what you and I talked about back in January, Will, we're going to see an increase of somewhere between 15 and 25% of rates in the spot market over the entire year. So just keep watching that if you're an owner-operator.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Brent.
You're welcome, Ashley. Thank you.
That was Brent Hutto with Truckstop. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Ashley. That's our program for today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad.
A son.
A husband.
Wife.
I'm a writer.
Photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing.
My kids.
Chrome. And I am a professional truck driver.
And together, we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us!
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit ooida.com.